kind of move some things out of the way so they're not in the way of our view as much. All right, well, that's going to stay there. Oh, well. Oops. Okay, so today kind of what I want to focus on is, going through the process, which I know all our volunteer clients are really good about this, about how you use traits and events to mark, is what I say, your record, your volunteer's record, and then how we then can search for those volunteers based on those traits and events, and then also to go over how you set them up in the lookup tables. So that's kind of the purpose. And then I also want to, like I said, throw in a little bit about reports and how traits and events tie into your export reports. They actually play a pretty important role, and I'm a big proponent, or whatever, I can't talk because that is cold. I think it's important to know how things fit together and know the why behind things, because when we know that, it just helps us when we're doing our job. So my mouse will work. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, it's not letting me click. I have to scroll. So, all right. Anyway, so you can use traits and events to mark a volunteer's record in volunteer search. So after you go through and you do your search, doesn't matter, like when you're clearing people, you're going to select complete, and then you're going to, do that way. But in general, you're going to search, you're going to find people. First thing you always do is, click on the pencil to open their record. And then it'll default you to their personal information tab. But we always go straight to that traits and events tab. And if they have no data, the screen looks like this. And so then you get to start adding data. And if you want to add an event, you're going to start by clicking Add New Event. And you select the event you want from the drop-down screen. And it could be, if you're doing disclosure or you're clearing them, it could be that you're approving them to be a volunteer. Whatever the event may be, you enter a date. When you're approving them, that's the expiration date. For any other event, it's just the date you did it. And then you can always add comments or a note, and that's what that event data field is for. So like on the disclosure field, you might want to leave a little bit of note, like, we talked to the applicant because, and got more information, and we cleared them. Simple as that. And then I always like to point out that hide field. When you add an event to a volunteer's account, it shows up on their account underneath their checklist. Because we want them, especially if it's an approval event, that they've been approved to volunteer, because we want them to know that they've been approved and what their expiration date will be. But there are sometimes events we don't want them to see. So that's where that hide box is really important, and we want to make sure we remember to use it. So if you're going in and you're marking disclosures, you might not want them to see all that, like, they're in review or denied or whatever. You don't want that to be public. So that's where that hide comes in handy. And some districts use events for just marking other information, maybe for tracking trainings or other things. And so they might use that, might need to hide that. So it's just for an internal process to track and mark and keep notes on an applicant's record. And so that's where that hide field comes in handy. So after you've added all your data, then you just simply save it. And traits is even easier, because trait is just a quick click and add. You don't add any, you don't get to add notes or anything, but it's a quick little flag. So from the drop-down menu, you find the trait you want to add to the user's account. Most common, it's the approved trait or the not approved trait. And you can add more than one trait. And if you wanted to make it remove it, you would just actually click on it from this box down below and it goes away. So let's talk about reports. When you add on almost all, I think every single one of our volunteer sites, when you add the trait of approved to volunteer or volunteer approved, you guys get to call it what you want, slightly different on every different site, that is the trigger for the system to add that individual to your approval list, your export of approved individuals that your buildings, your volunteer support individuals have access to. So this little approval trait is what flags them as being approved and adds them to the list. On the event, if the expiration date, we have on some sites it built in to show the expiration date, but only for certain events. So it's real important that you don't go adding brand new events midstream without talking to us, because you might need if you want those expiration dates to show up on your reports, because we might have to change the programming on your reports. Does that make sense? Am I being clear, Deb? Because I have a little bit of a stuffy brain here, and so my brain's a little tired. I don't know. But anyway, so when you add this trait, that's what adds this person to your export as being approved. It makes them viewable for people with the role of volunteer support. Okay. So traits and events. So after you've added your traits and events, this is what someone's record might look like. You can see here, this person, I've approved them to volunteer. I've given them an expiration date. I also, they had a disclosure hit. We cleared them. And I wanted to make sure I left a little note for myself, of when I cleared them and, whatnot. But I wanted it hidden because I don't want them to see that information. And then here's their traits. And you might say, well, why is there a second trait there? Not a lot of our volunteer clients have additional traits, but some do as a way to flag or mark or organize volunteers in a way so they can pull lists. And right now I can't think of a good example other than I can on jobs. I know on one of our big districts, they use it to mark applicants after they've screened them and put them in pools for hiring in the spring. Like, this person would make a good elementary candidate or whatever, just so they have a quick way to flag applicants of where they might fit, so then they can run lists later. So you could do something similar if you wanted with your volunteer pool. Maybe if they've done some training or something, if you've cleared them for some special type of volunteering, you could add a trait specific to that and add that trait so that you could find them quickly within your pool. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So when you're all done, you would click on the Return to Search button, and it would take you back to that main search screen. So how do we search for traits and events? So in order to manage your list of applicants, we give you the ability to search for them by those specific traits or events that you add to them. You can also search for people by missing traits and events. So that's kind of helpful too, and that's how we teach a lot of you to clear your volunteers. So to leave out the people you've already cleared by searching for those with the missing traits. An example, when you're searching for your volunteer applicants, you want to find those with complete application, and you mark, approve them. Well, the next time you want to list, you don't want to do the ones you've already approved, so you're going to look for the ones that are missing that approval. Okay. For searching for volunteers, you're still on that search screen, and what you're going to do is you're just going to add in the trait that you're looking for. So they're in the middle section of the search screen, there's an area where you can insert the trait that you want to add to your search. And it's just like where you add a trait, you just, from the drop-down menu, you select the trait you want to search for. It's going to show up in the box below. You're going to press search, and it's going to go through your applicant pool, and it's going to find all your applicants that have that same trait, and you're going to get a list below. Simple as that. Same with missing traits. Instead of putting the trait here, you're going to put the missing trait, and it's going to give you basically the reverse search. So anybody in your pool who doesn't have that trait is now going to show up below when you press the search button. So it's a reverse lookup, so to speak. And that's how we train you to to manage your pool when you're clearing your volunteers. Searching for events, same concept. You're just going to come here and pick the event that you want to find on, which applicants in your pool have that event. Select it from the screen and search. And same with missing, just put it in the missing field and search, and you're going to get your list. Okay. We get often asked how to add a new event or maybe edit the title of an event. And so if you have the role of system manager, that gives you the ability to access the lookup tables where all the setup of your site takes place. And so if you hover over that system manager menu and drop down partway, there's an option that's called lookup tables. And when you get there, there's there's two main areas. There's the shared lookup tables, and that's where it defaults to open. And then there's volunteer specific tables. And the events table is found under the shared lookup tables. And so you're going to look for the table called event types. And when you click it, it's going to open and it's going to look very similar to this. And if you're a system that has multiple of our portals, more than one portal, you might see a lot more information in this because events are shared among the different portals. The job system uses events, and our employee system also, employee records also uses events. And so then you could filter to the specific portal you're working on, which is volunteers, and it's going to only show you the events that are specific to the volunteer portal. So right here you can see this is what it looks like. And so if I wanted to add a new one, I'd start by pressing the orange button and completely add a new one. Or I could come in and edit one by clicking on the pencil. Right? So here I am editing one, I think, or maybe adding a new one. Can't quite tell. The first thing is, from the drop-down, you need to select the portal that this event's going to belong to. So obviously, if we're on the volunteer portal, we're going to select volunteers. And then you're going to give it a title or a description. So that's what shows up when you're in search and you're selecting your event. So what's it going to be called? This is where you would, if you're going to edit the name and change it, this is where you would go, this field right here, and make your edits. You're going to skip over test number because that's not applicable to the volunteer portal. Message. When you add an event to a user's account and you press save, you have the option for the system to send out an automatic message. So when you approve someone to be a volunteer, the system can send them an email saying, congratulations, you've been approved to be a volunteer for our district, and then whatever other instructions you want to go along with that message. So this is the place where you go to attach that particular message to your event. So you have to have the message created first before you can attach it. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. But so this is where you would attach it. And if you want to change the sort, so the sort is the order it appears in the drop-down menu. By default, it always goes by alphabetical. But if there is a particular event you want to be at the top of the list, you could come in here and you could change the sort order and put it as 1 and then change the others to another number. That would move it up to the top of the list. If you have an event that you're not using anymore, but you've used in the past, you wouldn't be able to delete it, but you could come in here and you could inactivate it. You could check this box and save it, and it would no longer be visible as a selection on the search screen. But it would still, all your old data would remain intact. And you're going to save your work. Okay. Talked about email messages. So if you want to go in and edit or add another email message that you can attach to an event, it's in those same lookup tables. You're just going to look for the table that's called email messages. And when you open it, the table looks like this, and you're going to filter to the volunteer messages. And then you can come in here and either add a new one or edit the existing one. So if you want to edit the one that's attached, to your approved and change it maybe, or look at it and make sure you like what's in there, you're going to come in and you click the pencil, or if you're making a new one, type new, and it looks like this. The message type, so that tells us what portal it belongs to. The message name is actually the subject of the email, and then the message, that's the body of the email. So you would go in here, you can either edit if it's an existing message or type your message. Go in here and make any modifications that you need to make. This log, this means do you want, whenever this message is sent out, do you want it to be part of the email log so there's a record that you know it went out or not? This is also if you want a sort order, because email messages, there's certain areas in the screen where you can select and find an email message, like when you see the little yellow envelope, you can select, pick an email message and manually send it by hand. It would just default the order it shows up in that list. If not, if the sort is 0, it goes by alpha, like I said. And then just like everywhere else, if you're no longer using a message, but you might want to use it later, you could have the option to inactivate it. And you can press save. And so you could come in here, create a message, then go back to events and attach it to an event if you were adding a brand new one. Hopefully that makes sense. And lastly, we have traits. So if you wanted to add a new trait, this is in that same area, those lookup tables, specifically the shared lookup tables. You're going to look for the table called trait types. And when you open it, it looks like this. And this is also a shared one, so if you're a multi-portal system, you're going to see traits for the application system. You're going to see traits for employee records. You're going to see traits that say any. I believe it says any or all. I can't remember which one. I get confused. Still got a cold here. So I always like to filter to the portal I'm working on. So I see those ones that are specific to my portal that I'm focusing on. And then just like everywhere else, I'd either click new item or I'm going to click on the pencil. And it's going to look like this. I'm going to, if I'm adding a new one, tell it what trait type, so which portal. And so I'm working in volunteer, so it's going to be volunteers. I'm going to give it a description or a name. So what am I going to call this trait? And then do I want to give it a sort order? And I would save it. And then this is also where you can go to inactivate an old trait. If you've never used a trait, you can delete it. But if there's data in the system won't let you delete, and that's where you have to use that inactive option. And then you would save your work. And that's it.